Hello everyone, welcome back to Elite Tales. Here we discover the emotional and captivating stories about Elon Musk. In this video, we will capture the heartwarming moments of famous entrepreneur. Before we begin, I request you that please subscribe our channel for more interesting videos. It was a quiet night in the hospital, the kind where the world seemed to fade away, and all that remained was the steady beeping of machines. The soft hum of the fluorescent lights and the distant shuffle of nurses' footsteps seemed almost like background noise to the man lying in the sterile hospital room. James Harris, a retired Army veteran, lay in bed, his frail body covered in a thin hospital blanket. His face, once strong and weathered by years of service, now appeared fragile and tired. His once broad shoulders had narrowed with time, his back curved slightly, and his hands, which had held rifles and tools in the heat of battle, now trembled with the effects of old age and illness. He had served his country well, giving up his youth, his health, and so much more in the name of something greater than himself. Yet here he was, alone in a cold hospital room, far away from the comrades he had once fought beside. The years had been long, and now, with his life nearing its end, he couldn't shake the feeling that it had all been for nothing. His body was broken, and his heart was heavy. James closed his eyes and let out a deep sigh, the weight of everything pressing down on him. He thought of the battles he fought, the sacrifices he made, and the friends he lost. He thought of the young man he had been, brave and strong, ready to take on the world. But time had worn him down, and now there was nothing left but the slow, inevitable march toward the end. And as he lay there, alone in the dim light, a knock on the door startled him. "Come in," James called, his voice raspy and weak. The door creaked open, and a man stepped into the room. A man James never expected to see. Elon Musk. Musk. James blinked in disbelief, his heart racing. Elon Musk, the billionaire tech mogul, the man behind Tesla and SpaceX, standing in his hospital room. What could someone like that possibly want with a dying old man like him? "I'm sorry to disturb you," Elon said, his voice soft but filled with warmth. "But I heard about you and I thought I should stop by. If that's okay." James was stunned. "You heard about me?" Elon smiled gently. "Yes, I've been told you're a hero, that you gave everything for your country, and I wanted to meet you, to thank you for your service." Tears welled up in James's eyes, and he quickly turned his face away, ashamed of the emotions he was feeling. He hadn't expected anyone, let alone someone like Elon Musk, to acknowledge his sacrifices. But here was this man, someone who had changed the world with his innovations, standing before him, recognizing the life James had lived, the sacrifices he had made. Elon sat down beside the bed, his expression full of empathy. "You've done so much for this country, James, and I want you to know that I don't take that lightly." James shook his head slowly, the weight of years of struggle and solitude crashing down on him. "What does it matter now?" he whispered. "I'm old. I'm dying. I have nothing left." Elon's face softened. "That's not true. You've given your all. And now, more than ever, you deserve to know that you matter. You've touched lives, even if you didn't realize it. Your service, your courage, it's still affecting people. And I'm here to tell you that your legacy lives on." James looked at Elon, his heart full of conflicting emotions. "I don't know what to say." Elon placed a hand gently on his shoulder. "You don't have to say anything. I just wanted to remind you that your life had meaning, that you made a difference, and that you're not alone." The words were simple, yet they struck James like a wave. In that moment, he felt as though the weight he had been carrying for so long had lightened, even if just a little. There was something incredibly powerful about hearing those words from someone like Elon Musk, someone who had achieved so much, yet who was willing to stand in the room of a dying veteran, a man who had nothing left but memories. James looked at Elon, his eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and disbelief. "You really think I mattered?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I know you did," Elon replied. "And I know that your story is still inspiring others. It's not about what we accomplish in the end. It's about the lives we touch along the way. and you've touched more lives than you could ever know." Tears began to fall from James's eyes, and he didn't try to stop them. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of peace, a sense that his life had meant something, even in its final moments. The man who had once been strong, who had once felt like a warrior, now felt a deep sense of gratitude for the life he had lived. Elon stayed with James for a while longer, talking with him about his time in the army, his memories, and the things that had brought him joy. They laughed together, shared stories, and in that brief time, Elon's presence brought a sense of comfort and dignity to a man who had been forgotten by most. As James began recounting stories from his time in the army, Elon felt a deep respect for this man, a man who had fought for something bigger than himself, who had endured hardships that most people could never imagine. The pain in James's eyes softened as he spoke about his comrades, the ones he had lost, and the bond they had shared. Each story was filled with emotion, with pride, with love, and with loss. It was clear that his time in the military had shaped him into the person he was. "You know," James said, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips, "when we were out there in the field, it wasn't just about fighting. It was about taking care of each other. We were more than just soldiers. We were brothers. There was no I in our unit. Only us." Elon listened carefully, his heart aching for the things James had lost, for the people who would never return. There was something incredibly raw and moving about hearing these stories from a man who had lived through them, someone who had seen the worst, yet still managed to hold on to the best parts of himself. "I had a good crew," James continued, his voice quiet but steady. "I remember one winter night, we were stuck in the snow. It was freezing, and we didn't think we'd make it. But one of the guys, Jim, he pulled me out of a ditch. He said, 'We don't leave our brothers behind.' That's what we believed. That's what we lived by. And we fought hard for that belief." Elon felt a lump in his throat. He could hear the pride in James's voice, even as he spoke about the most difficult times of his life. He could only imagine the weight of it all, the pain, the fear, the sacrifices made. Yet here James was, still strong, still holding on to those memories, even as his body betrayed him. "And Jim?" Elon asked softly. James's smile faded, replaced by a somber expression. "He didn't make it. We lost him. But he saved my life that day. He didn't even hesitate. That's the kind of people we were. We fought for each other, not just for our country." Elon felt the air shift as James spoke of Jim, the comrade he had lost. It was clear that the memories of his fallen friends still weighed heavily on him. The pain was still there, as fresh as the day it happened. But there was also something beautiful in it, something that spoke to the depth of his character, the depth of the bond he had shared with those men. James looked at Elon, his eyes tired but grateful. "I didn't think I'd make it through some of those days, but I did. And we all did. Together." Elon nodded, unable to find the words to express how deeply moved he was. He had known about veterans, about their sacrifices, about their courage. But hearing it firsthand, feeling the weight of those words, was something entirely different. The raw emotion in James's voice made it impossible for Elon to deny the greatness of this man. James wasn't just a veteran, he was a symbol of everything that was good in the world of loyalty, sacrifice, and brotherhood. For a moment, there was silence between them, the kind of silence that only comes when words can no longer express what the heart feels. Elon sat beside James, his hand resting lightly on the older man's arm. He didn't need to say anything, he just needed to be there. James looked at him again, his eyes filled with gratitude. "You're a good man, Elon. I never thought I'd meet someone like you. Someone who's done so much in life. I never thought I'd have the chance to talk to you. Or anyone like you." Elon smiled warmly, a lump forming in his throat. "You're the one who deserves to be recognized, James. You've done more than most people could ever dream of. You've sacrificed so much, and yet you're still here, still fighting, still showing the world what it means to live with honor." James shook his head, a soft chuckle escaping his lips. "I'm just an old man who's seen too much. But thank you. I appreciate that." They sat in companionable silence for a while longer, sharing the unspoken understanding that only comes when two people truly connect, when they truly listen to each other's stories. It wasn't about Elon's fame or success, it was about something deeper. It was about humanity, about empathy, about the shared experiences that bind us all together. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Elon stood up from his chair. "I need to get going," he said softly. "But I want you to know, James, that I'll never forget our conversation. You've changed the way I think about things." James smiled faintly. "I didn't do anything special." Elon looked down at him, his eyes sincere. "You did more than you know. And that's why I'm here to remind you of that. You matter. You've always mattered. And your legacy will live on, long after you're gone." James felt his eyes well up with tears once more. "Thank you, Elon. You don't know what this means to me." Elon stood for a moment longer, his hand lingering on James's shoulder. The weight of those words, simple but profound, seemed to hang in the air, creating a rare connection between two people from different worlds. He gave James a final, reassuring smile before turning to leave. As his footsteps echoed softly in the hallway, Elon felt the weight of the conversation settle deeply within him. He had met so many people in his life, but there was something different about James. This wasn't just any interaction, it was a profound moment of human connection that felt like an intersection of two parallel lives. Elon couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was destined to happen. The corridors of the hospital were quiet, and as he walked toward the exit, his thoughts drifted back to the promise he had made. He knew that he couldn't simply leave it there. He had to do something tangible to honor James's life and sacrifice. James's story needed to be heard, to inspire others, to remind them of the heroes they too often overlooked. Elon made his way back to his car, his mind racing. He had already experienced so much in his life, from building groundbreaking companies to exploring the stars. But today was different. Today, he had learned something invaluable about the quiet strength of those who served, the unsung heroes who carried the burdens of war and life with dignity, with no expectation of recognition. And that was something that needed to be shared with the world. Back in his office, Elon began drafting a plan. He wasn't one for conventional methods, and this wasn't going to be an ordinary tribute. No, this had to be something that would reverberate across the globe. Something that would take James's story and the stories of countless others like him and put them front and center. The following week, Elon stood before a crowd of hundreds, gathered in a venue that had been specially prepared for the event. On stage behind him was a massive screen displaying the image of James, his face weathered but proud, a slight smile curling at the edges of his lips. Elon could feel the anticipation in the air as he addressed the crowd. "Good evening, everyone," he began, his voice steady and strong. "I'm here tonight to share with you a story. A story about a man who served this country with honor, who fought for something greater than himself, and who carries the scars of that service in his heart. His name is James Harris, and he's a veteran who has given more than anyone should ever have to give." The crowd grew silent, hanging on every word. I had the privilege of meeting James last week, and I can honestly say it was one of the most humbling moments of my life. James isn't just a veteran, he's a hero, and his story is one of sacrifice, loss, and resilience. It's a story that deserves to be told loudly and proudly. The image of James on the screen shifted, showing him as a young man in his military uniform, smiling with his comrades. Elon continued, his voice filled with emotion. "James has seen things that most of us couldn't imagine. And he's lived through things that most of us will never have to. But he doesn't talk about those things for sympathy. He talks about them because they shaped who he is. They made him a man of unwavering strength, loyalty, and love for his country." Elon paused, his gaze steady as he looked at the audience. He knew the words he was about to say would resonate with many, but it was especially for James. For all the veterans who had ever served and never been properly acknowledged, James and his brothers in arms fought for each other. They fought for something bigger than themselves. And yet, when they returned home, they didn't always receive the recognition they deserved. And that is something we can't change for them. But we can change it for those who are still out there, fighting the battle of life after service. There was a murmur of agreement from the crowd, and Elon felt a wave of gratitude for the people who had gathered there, ready to listen, to learn, and to give honor where it was due. Tonight, I want to make a promise to James. To all of our veterans, I will use my platform, my resources, and my influence to ensure that their sacrifices are not forgotten, that they get the respect, the care, and the recognition they have so rightly earned. The crowd erupted in applause, and Elon felt a sense of peace settle over him. This was just the beginning. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but it was a road worth traveling. And it was a road that would change the way the world viewed its veterans. Over the next several weeks, Elon worked tirelessly with his team to launch a foundation dedicated to supporting veterans, providing them with the resources they needed to heal, to reconnect with their communities, and to find a sense of purpose again. It was a massive undertaking, one that required a level of commitment and focus that only someone like Elon could provide. But he had made a promise, and he was determined to see it through. As the foundation began to take shape, Elon found himself speaking more and more about James. He shared his story at conferences, on social media, and in interviews. And with each telling, the story of James Harris grew stronger, his legacy more and more intertwined with Elon's own journey. Months later, Elon returned to the hospital where he had first met James. This time, James was no longer in the sterile confines of a hospital bed. He had moved to a rehabilitation center where he could begin to recover physically and emotionally. Elon walked into the room and saw James sitting up in a chair by the window, looking out at the world outside. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow across the sky. "Hey there, old man," Elon said, his voice light but full of emotion. James turned, a grin spreading across his face when he saw Elon standing in the doorway. "Well, if it isn't the richest man in the world," he said with a wink. "Come to check on your investment." Elon chuckled and walked over to sit beside him. "No, I came to check on my friend," he replied. "How are you feeling?" "Better," James said softly. "But I've still got a ways to go." Elon nodded, understanding the long road to recovery that lay ahead for James. "I've been thinking about you a lot lately," he said, his voice quiet. "You've inspired so many people, James. Your story has been heard across the world, and it's making a difference." James looked at him, his eyes brightening. "I never thought I'd be able to make a difference," he admitted, his voice cracking slightly. "But if my story can help others, then maybe it was worth it. Maybe all the pain, the losses, the suffering. Maybe it wasn't in vain." Elon reached out and placed a hand on James's shoulder. "Your story is far from over, my friend," he said with a smile. "And it will continue to inspire people for generations to come. You've given more than anyone could ask for. And now, we're going to make sure the world knows it." James's eyes welled up with tears, his voice barely a whisper. "Thank you, Elon. You've given me more than I ever thought I'd have: respect, recognition, and hope." Elon stood up, his heart heavy with emotion. "You earned it, James. You earned it 1,000 times over." As he left the room, Elon couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude for this man, for his service, and for the chance to make a difference. And as he walked out into the world, ready to continue his work, he knew that James Harris had changed him in ways that could never be undone. And that's the story of how a simple act of kindness changed the life of a dying veteran, reminding us all of the power of compassion and human connection. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more heartwarming tales. Let's spread the message that sometimes the smallest gestures can make the biggest impact. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.